In response to allegations of sexual assaults by students, including several football players, Baylor announced Thursday that Art Briles has been suspended with intent to terminate. Kenneth Starr will also no longer serve as the president, but will stay at the school. Baylor's actions come after the university's Board of Regents ordered and received an independent report from a law firm that investigated the school's response to sexual assault allegations. Stephen A., what should the NCAA do about this situation now?
Whatever's necessary. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not satisfied at all. I know a lot of people are looking at the fact that the football coach is not going to be there. Skip, I think you know the individual. He's a broadcaster in Dallas. What is it, Dale Hansen? Am I correct in saying his name,
very
Skip?
Well. WFAA, Channel 8 in Dallas.
Yeah, I've met him once. I'm very fond of his work. I applaud him speaking out against Art Briles. It is the right thing to do. We've met Art Briles. He's been a guest on this show. He seemed to be a very nice man, but there was a flagrant dereliction of duty performed by him. As far as I'm concerned, he should be fired. He should be out of his job. It's just that simple. You can't be a football coach and have a bevy of sexual assault allegations and cases. I believe in one case, somebody's getting 20 years for his sexual misconduct, and all of this under the stewardship of this man's football program. It simply can't happen. But I'm not stopping there. To me, Kenneth Starr, that's where my eyes are right now. I am appalled at Baylor, the largest Baptist school in the nation, I might add. I am absolutely appalled. As far as I'm concerned, the institution itself should be disgraced. They should be embarrassed and ashamed of themselves right now. And I'm going to tell you why, Skip. This guy has been demoted, but he's still allowed to be a law professor and a chancellor. Now, this is to say, first of all, it reeks of hypocrisy on the part of Kenneth Starr, because you got to remember here, we're talking about instances where they're accusing the institution of higher learning, that is Baylor University, of a dereliction of duty, not taking heed and paying attention to the complaints being levied against students and football players, dragging their feet, ignoring complaints from parents and others, etc. This is the same Kenneth Starr, if I remember correctly, Skip, who was the independent counsel leading the investigation of Whitewater and the White House scandal involving intern Monica Lewinsky, which led to the impeachment of President Bill Clinton back in 1998. So you're dogged and dogmatic in your approach to sit up there and bring down a president who, as egregious as it may be, clearly was involved in something consensual. But you want to ignore folks who are saying that individuals associated with your school were raping and sexually assaulting people. Really? That's what you're doing? And somehow, in some way, this man gets demoted, but is still allowed to teach students and maintain the title of chancellor? And according to the reports, that's inexcusable. Why is he a salary? Why exactly? And his salary. His salary should be gone. He should be gone. Any relationship with Baylor University, he should be immediately stripped of right now. I'm talking about right now. Not 10 minutes from now, not an hour from now, not a day from now. Now he needs to be gone. So if we're talking about Art Briles, the football coach, you got to remember, this is institution-wide. You got an athletic director that's being suspended and reprimanded, etc. But what they're doing is following, you know, rules and, you know, the authority of their leader, which Kenneth Starr was. You take off the head, the body falls. Briles has to go because he just has to go. His name being associated with this, his program being associated with this nonsense, that's a given. But the fact that Kenneth Starr has not been fired and immediately removed from any association with Baylor University is an absolute disgrace. The NCAA should step in, mandate that he is removed from any and all things having to do with the university, having to do with students. A law professor and a chancellor after this nonsense and the hypocrisy with which you went after Bill Clinton, but you're not going, you're not paying attention to folks that are sexually assaulting students on your campus. This is as egregious as it gets. And this is not the first time Baylor has been associated with something egregious. As far as I'm concerned, as long as Kenneth Starr is there on national television, I would encourage students not to even think about attending Baylor. I'm sorry.
And how about the athletic director, Ian McCaw, who is just sort of on probation now. Shouldn't he go also? It's the same. They're all complicit here.
I brought him up.
Yeah.
I brought him up. It's just that if Kenneth Starr is the man running things, who knows what orders came down the pike. That's all I'm trying to say. Briles doesn't have that because, you know, the football program, they are their own institution. So Briles could have done something about this conceivably.
Yeah.
Starr definitely could have been a bit more diligent in his duties. Otherwise, he would not have been demoted. But why even bother allowing him to have a relationship with the university? It's disgraceful. If I'm a parent, I'm a parent. If my daughter wanted to go there, no, you're not going to Baylor. Not going to Baylor. Ain't going there.
Okay. Now let me answer Jen's question about what should the NCAA do. This is hard on me because I have a lot of friends who are Baylor alums, and I respect them all, and they love their institution. By the way, may I quickly read the mission statement of the Baptist University that is Baylor?
Please do.
Yeah, the mission statement. The mission of Baylor University is to educate men and women for worldwide leadership and service by integrating academic excellence and Christian commitment within a caring community. I get chills.
Forgive me for laughing. That's funny. That's really funny.
Okay.
A bunch of hypocrites they sound like right now.
This is rampant hypocrisy. And Ian McCall, the athletic director, was quoted fairly recently in Sports Illustrated as saying, our goal is to glorify God through the athletic department. Ooh, that hurts. Now, back to the penalties. This is the time the NCAA should swoop in and hit Baylor with severe sanctions. Significant loss of scholarships and maybe loss of bowls or postseason for a couple of years. Penn State got hit hard. You and I, if you recall, argued back and forth about this. I defended the Penn State community, the program, the fandom, which is a great fandom, obviously, the town it's in, State College, because I said that what that monster Sandusky was doing under the, you know, sort of behind the scenes, if you will, that Joe Paterno clearly, to me, protected, that Joe Paterno paid for with his job, and you could argue with his legacy, that several high-ranking officials paid for with their jobs, that didn't benefit Penn State competitively on the football field. You see what I mean? But in this case, this culture that Art Briles was able to quietly create, it allowed many players, many good players, to stay eligible after they were getting away with abusing women, sexually abusing women. They stayed afloat. They stayed eligible. I'm going to take it so far as to say, because remember, I covered a lot of Baylor back in my days in Dallas when they were in the Southwest Conference, and Baylor always fought the negative recruiting of all their rivals in the state of Texas and for a while Arkansas, because the rivals would say, hey, why would you want to go to Baylor? It's too conservative. You're not going to have any fun at Baylor. Well, Art Briles changed all that. The message quietly being sent through the current players, through the locker room, to the recruits could have been, hey, come to Baylor. You can have the run of the campus. You can get away with just about anything here because football players rule. Football became their god at Baylor to a fault. So my point is, if you kept all those players eligible after they didn't just break NCAA rules, they're breaking the laws. So it becomes, there's a moral question, then there's a competitive question on the field. Well, that benefited Baylor greatly on the field, so that's the NCAA's domain to say, hey, you need to pay severely for that because you got away with a lot of players staying eligible who didn't remotely deserve to. And I hear Paul Levine say on our air late last night, there are many more cases that haven't yet been reported here. I think we're still at tip of iceberg. This was a big, bad mess at Baylor.
It's interesting because you bring up the bevy of individuals that you know who come from the University of Baylor. Skip, this is no aspersion. This is not casting any aspersions on them. The likelihood is that they've had nothing to do with it. They're proud of the university for a far more positive reason. But what I would tell you to tell them is that that makes it even more incumbent on them to step in and handle business. Yep. I'm not on the board of anything for Winston-Salem State University, my alma mater. But I can assure you right now, you know, I know people, and I'm very well connected to power brokers at my alma mater.
Sure.
If something like this were going on, and let me tell you something right now, and you know, Skip, because you know this, I've pledged, you know, $50,000 a year for the next 5 years, you know, to my alma mater. Let me tell you something right now. If something like this was going on, and they didn't get rid if we had a Kenneth Starr type, okay, and they didn't get rid of him, and they were allowing something like this running rampant, I'd pull every dollar. I wouldn't give them a damn dime. I wouldn't hesitate. I'm telling you that right now, and I would encourage anybody that's associated with the university not to do the same. Kenneth Starr has to go. I'm not saying that I know anything about what the man did directly, but you are the leader of the university. Clearly, they think you did something wrong because essentially they've demoted you. What the hell is a demotion for? Get rid of him. How do you go and be a teacher, a law professor to students? How do you do that when you ignored the law, at least in the eyes of some? How do you remain as chancellor? How do you keep getting dollars from this university when you allowed such an egregious stain to taint this institution and arguably into perpetuity? We'll never forget it. It's just ugly. The culture is shredded. It's gone. It's an awful culture that nobody should want to be associated with. Get rid of this man. If you can get rid of Art Briles, you can damn sure get rid of Kenneth Starr, particularly when Kenneth Starr, even more so than Briles, is in a leadership position. And on top of it all, he's more attached to the hypocrisy of it all because of how he went at Bill Clinton, but don't go after kids on his campus assaulting women left and right.
Rampant
Inexcusable.
Hypocrisy.
Inexcusable.
What phrase did you use to me earlier this week from the Reagan era? Plausible deniability?
Plausible
I assume
deniability?
that's what Mr. Starr is trying to fall back on right now, is plausible deniability. I didn't know.
Well, then why you get demoted?
He was presiding over this whole culture and sordid affair.
You're the leader. The buck stops with you. I'm not saying he did anything directly. I'm saying ultimately he's responsible for the perception that the university receives under his watch. He has failed in his job. He needs to go.
Yep. Well, as you well know, bottom line, that football organization, that operation, that program has generated millions of dollars for Baylor University because it has been on the upswing under Art Briles. Now it's going to cost them millions of dollars, maybe in lawsuits, probably in lawsuits. And to your point, a lot of these upstanding citizens and good Christian people who are alums, I think they're going to do what you suggest. I think they're going to start pulling some funds. So this is going to, it's really going to set Baylor back.
They certainly have earned
Go
the
out
criticism.
there and hire a reputable coach. Hire a reputable coach. You get rid of them. Get rid of Kenneth Starr, even more so than Briles.
Well, for the record, gentlemen, the Big 12 Conference has said that they do not have the power to implement any sanctions against Baylor. And just a few hours ago, we heard that the university has plans to hire defensive coordinator Phil Bennett into the interim head coach position, probably to limit some of the chaos that the program has certainly brought upon itself. But if you consider the problem to be systematic, you may want to question the decision to bring someone in who has been in that program that has had all of these issues.
I agree with that, Jen. I totally agree with that. And keep in mind, there are other coaches that have lost their job. There are other administrators that have lost their job for far less egregious things. I mean, you got issues going on at Missouri. Folks lost their job there because of the perception of certain things. But it didn't involve sexual assault. It didn't involve that.
No.
If they lost their job for that, how come Kenneth Starr still has a job on that campus? Get rid of that man. get rid of that man.
Certainly a conversation that will continue. Let's move on. Steph Curry looking like his old self in the Warriors Game 5 win over the Thunder. But can he do it again in Oklahoma City on Saturday night? We'll break down Game 6 when we return.